Yes, indeed, across the country. Over 400 by the last count, different town halls and events where members of the broad resistance, if you will, are showing up, just identified as Americans who are not happy with the Trump agenda, particularly repeal of Obamacare, and are out to make their voice to have their voices heard and to make their points of view um, and to express their points of view. Clare Foran from the Atlantic has been following this whole movement, joining us in studio. Hi, Clare.
Hi, thanks
Good,
for having me.
good to see you. We've been following some of these. Chuck Grassley with a big town hall,
Hmm.
Tom Reed up in New York State. Some of the ones that have got more fun. Jason Chaffetz out in Utah. Yesterday, Marsha Blackburn with a town hall down in Tennessee. Bill Cassidy
In
in
Louisiana.
Louisiana got a
Yeah.
little rowdy down there. Maybe the biggest one of all was in North Carolina
With the Tom Cotton
with Tom
in Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, not North Carolina. Arkansas, Springdale, Arkansas. Tom Cotton, and there so many. I saw the picture on the Huffington Post. It's a huge crowd,
Yeah. And people waiting, huge lines outside,
about
waiting for hours to
a
get in.
thousand
Yeah.
outside
Hmm.
trying to wait. Were not able to
Hmm.
get in. One woman, Mary, kind of set the tone here.
First of all, I'm Mary Story from Fayetteville, and I am not a paid protester.
Yep, not a paid protester, because the line from the White House, of course, from Republicans
Yeah.
across the board, and yesterday even from the White House at the press briefing, was that a lot of these people are just paid to show up. Here is Sean Spicer.
There's a hybrid there. I think some people are clearly upset, but there is a bit of professional protester manufactured base in there.
Yeah, I haven't seen any evidence of one quote unquote
Paid protester.
paid
Yeah.
or professional protester. But what's going on with this whole movement, Claire?
Well, as you said, I think it really sort of got on the national media's sort of radar, when Jason Chaffetz had his town hall in Utah, which was a little while back. Really, I think what's been remarkable is just that kind of the hostile confrontations that we're really seeing Republican lawmakers sort of put on the spot. And I think the message, it's obviously a little bit diffuse, but it's fairly clear in terms of we're seeing chants of really sort of do your job getting yelled at a lot of these people. Chaffetz got that comment, which was obviously sort of
So did Tom
particular.
Cotton.
So did
Right.
Tom Cotton. I think Bill Cassidy also did. Now with Chaffetz, of course, it takes on sort of a special meaning since he's the House Oversight Chairman and, could be investigating but is not investigating Trump conflicts of interest. But to see it sort of across the board is interesting, and I think, Obamacare has it seems to be sort of driving the discussion, but of course it's so much more than that. You're seeing a lot of people calling on Republicans to do more to look into, Russian interference, to do more to investigate Mike Flynn. It's really, I think, a lot of anger that's sort of bubbling up, and it's been interesting to see it in some deep red states as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who beat Eric Cantor in Virginia.
Dave Bratt.
Dave Bratt.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a
So
guy,
on Monday. Yeah.
a Tea Party guy who knocks off the establishment Republican, the second most powerful Republican in the House of Representatives. So in a deep red district,
Yeah.
and he as sort of a protester almost from the right, and now he's
getting
facing
the
protests
same-
from the right
Yeah.
in his district. And this is the message for all of them, that they don't want them to be a rubber stamp for Trump's agenda.
Yeah, I think that
It's not just mainly
I think,
Obamacare,
yeah,
but it's not just.
standing up to Trump, not being,
right.
not sort of rolling over. And I spoke with somebody who's has been trying to get Martha McSally in Arizona to commit to a town hall this week. And it's, a lot of these activists that I've spoken with are people who've never been, who say they've never been involved in politics before, other than, maybe they've voted. But I spoke with somebody in Utah who was at the Chaffetz Town Hall and helped organize people to come to the Chaffetz Town Hall, is associated with the local chapter of Indivisible there. But, he said that before the election, he'd never even been to a protest. He'd never, really. I spoke with him over the phone, and, he even said himself, like, we don't even know really what we're doing. But it was like you could hear, like, the energy and the anger in his voice. And when I was talking to him, he was saying he was on his way to Mia Love, who's another House representative in Utah, and he said, I'm on my way to her office right now, and he just said, like, we don't even know exactly what we're doing, but we just know we can't stop. And he also commented on the way that Chaffetz was dismissive of those protests, and sort of saying, these people were trying to bully and intimidate, and sort of suggesting they were out of state. And he sort of said, that just makes us angry.
Well, how did he find out about all these? How was he, this guy you talked to,
how did he
finding out about all these town halls and knowing where to go, even knowing where and when to show up?
Yeah, well, it does seem to be that, so Indivisible, which is this, it started out as a guide by former sort of progressive congressional staffers, essentially the idea being, of course, to take a page out of the Tea Party playbook, not in terms of adopting wholesale what the Tea Party did, but particularly in terms of sort of pressuring members of Congress through phone calls and through showing up at town halls. And then now that's sort of turned into an organization in its own right. But
we had one of the leaders of Indivisible Guide in the studio yesterday at indivisibleguide.com, and they're former congressional staffers,
right? And it seems
who had
like
this idea, we should, let's focus on Congress and let's let people know all the different ways that they could have an impact: phone calls, letters, whatever, emails, and showing up at these town halls or their district offices.
Yeah, and it seems that guide has really, I remember when the guide first came out and sort of seeing it on social media and wondering to what extent it would really take off, whether or not it would just be something that maybe journalists sort of write about but doesn't necessarily take hold. But it really does seem that a lot of people who are just sort of almost desperate for something to grab onto have grabbed onto sort of the guidelines in this guide and are following it. And it is really remarkable to see, I know you guys were talking about the DNC race, but it's like we still haven't have that. The DNC race still has yet to be decided. The Democratic Party is sort of an institutional apparatus, is kind of, in some ways, it's like resist Trump plans are on hold until that gets figured out. But really, we're seeing so many people that are kind of rushing in to fill that void.
Yeah. One thing that's pretty clear, this resistance in all of its manifestations is not being organized by the Democratic Party.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of I know there are a lot of Democrats as part of it, but there are also a lot of independents and a lot of people, as you pointed out, who haven't been to a protest ever before. It's not the Democratic Party that is pulling the strings.
It's really not.
That is running this.
Really, I think to even suggest, if Republicans want to suggest that the Democratic Party is pulling the strings, in some ways that's almost giving the party too much credit, because I really think the party has been sort of set on its heels as far as, in a lot of these red states too, the party doesn't have that much organizational capacity to begin with. But really, we're seeing these are just people. They're people who haven't been involved in politics to this extent before. Right.